Welcome back to another episode of Props Sutra, where we demystify and simplify real estate. This week, we're going to talk about real estate as an investment. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
So last week, we spoke about buying real estate for personal use. This week, we'd like to discuss buying real estate for somebody who's looking more as an investment. So if I'm looking for an investment, how do I begin?
See, buying real estate or property for an investment purpose is quite a different animal as compared to buying it for, your own use, frankly.
Yes.
The difference, in my opinion, is as soon as you say investment, you have to be very rational and you don't bring emotions into it. So it is almost like a scientific business model that runs it, rather than bringing your emotion that I didn't like the place or I didn't like the locality or I didn't like the gentry. That's the first thing people need to understand.
Okay.
Because people buy property and real estate based on their emotional side also.
Yes.
And forget sometimes that it might not be the best business decision. Okay?
Okay.
So any investment, just to take you quickly through the basics, has three vectors, three dimensions.
Yes.
There is the dimension of risk, naturally, which is the most important. There is the dimension of what we call volatility. Will the
Okay.
value go up and down? And there is the dimension of liquidity. If I want to get out of the investment, is it easy to sell?
Okay.
Okay. Real estate in all the three,
Yes.
in my opinion, is low. It has a low risk,
Okay.
it has low volatility, and it has low liquidity also. It's not easy to
Yes.
liquidate real estate.
Yes.
Okay. Whereas when you think of equity stocks or something, in my opinion, it's high across the board.
Right.
You have a high risk, you have high volatility, and you have higher liquidity, and so it has a higher return overall than real estate. So generally, as an investment, when you look at it, we have to look at real estate being a part of a asset allocation portfolio,
Right.
which covers the low to medium risk, I
Okay.
would call.
Right.
And so people unfairly compare it to something else like stocks or bonds or something, which is not fair. I feel at the best you can compare it to gold, which is again a physical asset
Right.
in most of the cases.
Yes.
So I think that mindset is first to be adopted as a first step when you look at real estate.
Okay.
That look, I'm buying this asset not for consumption, not for my ego. It's
Right.
not a trophy asset.
Yes.
It is a purely an investment decision I'm making, because in my portfolio, I want my stock investments also to be balanced by some low to medium risk assets. That is the first step.
All right. So first you compare apples to apples. You don't try to compare it to stocks. You try to compare it to other.
Definitely, I don't think real estate can ever be compared to stocks, because they're two different animals totally.
All right. Okay. So then, now that we're talking about real estate, within real estate, there are under construction properties, there are ready to move, there are fire sales. How do I select?
See, each one has its own sort of risk profile. Okay, so if I start first with the concept of buying ready properties, ready to
Yes.
move in properties, then again there is two streams. It can be a new property
Yes.
that is just being built,
Yes.
or it can be an old property that is already existing. Both have their pros and cons as far as investment is concerned. So one has to then figure out what is the due diligence required, like for any investment, before you jump into it.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
So the due diligence will both cover the legal, the technical, the commercial aspect of the property. You get your experts around, your lawyer, your valuer, and your CA, so that you know all the aspects of the taxation and the investment before you get into that property.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
So many people ask me whether they should buy ready or under construction. They have different risks. Naturally, an under construction property has a higher risk than a ready property.
Let's talk about under construction. What are the risks involved?
In an under construction, the first risk is involved is whether you'll get it in a timely fashion.
But we have RERA today.
See, RERA is a regulator. He will enforce your rights finally,
Yeah.
but you might not still get it timely.
Well,
Okay,
yes.
he
Yeah.
might default. You might take him to the RERA. They might enforce that yes, it has to be given in the next 12 months, 24 months. But that doesn't mean they can actually make it happen. They can only penalize him, and they have to have enough teeth to frighten, if I can say so, scare a developer into believing that this is very important, that he sticks to his contract. But will he do it? Nobody knows. See, real estate is a very unorganized market. Okay?
Okay.
Even today, the big listed real estate developers hardly can say that they take their 20% of the market. So the bulk of it, as a rule, it is unorganized. You're going to meet people who are not listed, corporatized, or anything.
Right.
So, yes, RERA has brought a sea change in their attitude because they're regulated today. But does it mean that automatically you will get your asset? Not necessary. So, there will be a difference. So, you're evaluating a developer also to see in an under construction whether you'll get the property.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
Whereas when it is a ready to move in property, I evaluate the property.
Right.
It becomes more important. But if it becomes under construction, my focus would be to evaluate the developer. Is he going to give me the property at the right quality, at the right timeline, with at the right cost what he has promised me, or will there be any sort of a hiccup in that?
Okay.
You understand?
Yes. So it's the reputation of a builder that needs to be studied well with an under construction property.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And with ready to move properties now, sometimes people think of buying flats in, say, old buildings that they believe are going to go in for redevelopment. That's one way of thinking. What are your thoughts on that?
See, unless you're an expert, you shouldn't do this because redevelopment by itself is a very, very different sort of a business model.
Okay.
Because you really don't know who is going to come in for the redevelopment, how does he look at it, under which section he will redevelop,
Right.
how much is each one going to be. Yes, it's good to know it will be redeveloped.
Yes.
But suppose, for example, that it's a standalone building, but is going to get redeveloped by the new developer in a cluster development because he's bought over all the other 10 buildings around.
Right.
Now, automatically,
Yes.
instead of you getting it in 3 years, you will get it in 7, 8 years
Yes.
because it's a larger development.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
So, redevelopment as such, unless you know very well how it's going to be redeveloped, yeah, it is a very tricky sort of a business model to wrap your head around, if I can say so.
Okay.
So, unless you're an expert or you're guided by an expert, it is going to be pretty naive for a retail investor to get into redevelopment and take a bet on that.
Okay.
To say, yes, it's a very old project, so, very old building, so I'm going to get into it, it's going to get redeveloped over time. It's neither here nor there. It's not for his own use, it's not for investment because you really don't know the investment span.
Right.
Am I going to wait 7 years before I get it?
Yes.
Will it go into redevelopment? What if there's a litigation in between? It can even spin out of control. So you really don't know.
Right.
So then you're betting on a lot of unknowns. So if you're asking me, I would never advise a retail investor to go and buy a property based on the premise that it will go into redevelopment.
Okay. That's not a game that's worth playing.
No. I feel the safest one is to buy a ready property because then you know all the pros and cons of the building. You know what sort of a rental to expect. You know what is the gentry. You know what are the market dynamics in that micro locality. You know that all. That is the safest.
Okay.
As you become more seasoned investor, you will try to do an under construction property.
Right.
Because you will say, I get to know the developer better.
Yes.
I can study his profile.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a bet that he's going to actually give me the completed project as he has promised.
Okay.
Okay. Last, if he's such an expert professional, then he will start doing redevelopment. To say, I'll take a bet, I'll buy these old buildings, I'm going to wait because I feel that the upside is quite a bit.
Right.
But frankly, in today's market, with so much information available,
Yes.
it's not very easy to find redevelopment distress sales, if I can say so.
Okay. Most people are willing to hold on to
They
their
are
property.
willing to hold on because they know it's going to go into redevelopment.
Right. What about some people who try to play this game where they are able to borrow at a cheaper rate and buy an under construction, and by the time, say, the property is built over 5 years, 7 years, they believe that there'll be a capital appreciation and they can sell it?
Move into the concept of leverage, what you're talking about.
Yes.
Whether you're buying a ready to move in property or an under construction. The only difference being in an under construction, you will do it in a graded fashion.
Yes.
Okay. But the concept of leverage starts from the fact that you believe that that property is going to uh, revalue itself or appreciate at a rate higher than your interest rate.
Yes, that's the assumption I'm making.
Correct?
Yeah.
Today's interest rates, let's say, vary between 7 to 8%,
Correct.
even for a good borrower with a high credit rating. Correct?
Yeah.
So you're betting
Yes.
that over the next 5 years in an under construction property or in a rate property, this property is going to appreciate higher than the 8%.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're borrowing at 8%, and if the property appreciates at 5%, then you're losing somewhere, no?
Right. Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
So, that is the assumption you're going with.
Right.
So, if you're a seasoned investor and you know for sure the future that it is going to appreciate at 8%, be my guest. But if you're not, then don't take a loan thinking you will play it on the arbitrage.
Okay.
These again, as I said, there's a difference between a professional or institutional investor and a typical retail investor.
Okay. Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So a retail investor who doesn't know that market dynamics might very well get burnt.
Okay.
You understand? So I think based on your expertise and how your experience has been, one should get into that. So usually people who take loans to buy under construction are people who want to stay in that flat, and that's the only way they have financial closure.
Okay. Understood. Well, what if I've bought a property that's ready? I'm hoping that I will put it out on rent for the next couple of years and then be able to sell it later. There, I'm assuming, even though I've taken a loan to buy my property, with the rent and capital appreciation together, I'll be able to square it off and make some money.
Correct.
Is that advisable, or is that again?
No, say, think about it. Rentals in the market today hover around 3%.
Yes.
Okay? I'm just talking about
Generally.
sort of a warm shell which we generally give, nothing to do with fully furnished and semi-furnished. Appreciation of real estate generally, we say, is inflation hedged.
Yes.
Okay? So inflation, let's assume on an average is 5%.
Yes.
So I would assume real estate appreciation to be around 5 to 6%. So if your 6% and 3%, 9% return
Yes.
is going to be more than the interest rate you're paying for your loan,
Yes.
you have a positive arbitrage.
Right.
Okay? I'm not getting into the tax aspects because generally,
Understood.
if you take a loan and you rent it out, you get a tax break.
Right.
Self-occupied also, you get a limited tax break.
Yes.
I'm not getting into that. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at them as pre-tax to
Yes.
compare apples to apples. So when I look at it that way, I still feel you're cutting it very fine.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's still.
So to be on the safe side, I would tell any person that real estate generally grows in the region of 8 to 10% on a long-term basis.
Okay.
In a proper property cycle of 10 to 15 years. That's how it grows.
Okay.
So when you think of 8 to 10%, because there will be certain micro markets where it might go at 15
Absolutely.
and 18%, and there will be some which will go at 5, 6%.
Right.
Okay. So that's a different issue. That's the investment decision which you will take on a commercial as to which micro market should I really be investing in. But if an average is about, say, 10 to 12% or 8 to 10% based on where you are, you don't have that much of a margin to play. So especially if it is for investment, I'll always ask you, why do you take a debt?
You go for what you can afford rather than.
Yeah, because there is also a concept of vacancy. It's not that rental will always be smooth.
Yes. So that comes to my next segment. I wanted to talk to you about once I've bought a property as an investment, I want to hold on to it for perhaps 10, 15 years. Is it really necessary to put it on rent?
Absolutely, because one, why should you miss out on 3% rental?
Okay.
That is one. Two, any house that's locked down deteriorates and depreciates much faster.
Okay.
Sure, the land is appreciating, so your price will go up,
Mhm.
but the flat itself will be run down.
Okay.
Okay, so somebody who comes into the flat will give you a lower price.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So contrary to, it's counterintuitive because you'll think, oh, if I give it out, the tenant will
It'll
ruin
deteriorate.
it. No,
Yes.
because nowadays there are agreements where you tell the tenant, especially if it's a good property, that is to give it back to you in the same state you are given it,
Right.
including repainting it
Yes.
and giving it back. So technically, somebody should always use the flat. It's not only an economic benefit to you, but it is also in national interest when we have a shortage of housing that we don't lock up our houses.
Understood.
You understand? So
Yes.
we should give it out on rent, and I strongly advocate that.
Okay. So if I have to give it out on rent, a lot of people are now getting into the idea of going to tourist hotspots like a Goa and Alibag and playing the game where they give their second homes or investment to companies like Airbnb, or you have a lot of these other homestay companies. They offer you a much higher rental, but there are added risks. What are your thoughts on this?
It's an added risk, but it's a good play if you're
Okay.
sure about the operator.
Mm-hmm.
You keep an eye on the property. In Airbnb, you need your own caretaker, but there are many caretaker companies also coming up
Yes.
who are saying they'll take care of it.
Yeah.
So it's a good sort of an income which will give you a higher return, and you'll be maintained also. There's nothing wrong if you got the right spot,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do it with a good operator.
Right. Do you think that's a good game to play only in these tourist hotspots, or you could do it even in a city like Mumbai?
You can do it anyway, but in a problem in a city is usually the RWAs and the cooperative housing societies will not allow you to start using it as an Airbnb.
Okay.
So you'll run foul of them.
Okay. So then, in a city, is it better to perhaps consider giving it out as a serviced apartment or
A
looking?
serviced apartment is nothing but a done up apartment.
Yes.
You can't give any other service next other than that.
Yes.
I don't see you leaving a cook behind or something. So it's just a fully done up apartment when it's an individual. See, there is a sort of a gray area out here which we have not yet been able to address at a sort of an aggregate level. When you start renting out houses on short term basis, technically it becomes more of a commercial activity.
Right.
Okay. So in certain states and certain cities, it will be construed as that you're treating the property as commercial.
Yes.
It might come under the Hotels and Lodging Act. It might need different sort of set of licenses and regulations.
Should it,
You-
if you are doing it?
It should, because if you're giving an Airbnb for 3 days, whom are you giving it to? You really don't know, no? Someone books it online and goes into your house. What do you know he's doing? He might be smuggling drugs. So the question comes in that these sort of activities, when you do it in a regular hotel, it is always monitored by those acts.
Right.
Because you will have the local police checking the registers, knowing who are there,
Okay.
maintaining all the details and everything. So one has to be careful, even when you talk about a destination spot, tourist hotspot, and all that, that you are not transgressing those rules if something goes wrong.
Right.
Somebody has used your premises
Yes.
for a wrong activity, illegal activity.
Yes.
So one has to be careful of that. They forget that sometimes
Right.
in their naivety. So you need a good operator to ensure compliance. Okay. So I would always tend to believe, again, as I'm saying, there's a difference between a retail investor and a very smart, seasoned investor. A
Yes.
retail investor should not get into all those sort of things. Typically, you should just try for a more longer term leave and license or lease,
Yes.
and leave that to the seasoned experts who think that they will do these Airbnbs or as you said, serviced apartments and things like that.
Right. Well, in Portugal, some time ago, they had this issue where suddenly rents went up so much because it became a very popular destination for these long stay guests. As a result, the local people couldn't afford rent anymore. Um, you hear about instances like this even in Goa, where the locals, people living and working there, are struggling now because rents have gone high. But do you see it becoming a problem in India?
Not so much,
Okay.
because I don't think we'll reach that saturation point so quickly where we'll have so many tourists.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, India, frankly, doesn't attract that many tourists,
Yes.
even Goa, whether it's
Yes.
foreign or domestic. So we are far away from that. And usually, the locals in India, we have a high level of ownership in the sense that whether it's a permanent dwelling or it's a semi-permanent,
Yes.
people have something.
Okay.
So the rental market in India is not that vibrant to start getting impacted by a huge influx of tourists who are taking the same places.
Okay.
So I think we might not go that way so quickly.
All right. So, like you said, coming back, if I'm a retail investor, it might be safer, especially if I'm a first timer, to go with a regular tenant, a long leave-in license. Sometimes people feel apprehensive about giving their flat out to people for a long time. In which case, is it better to go to a corporation like a MNC that tends to take apartments on rent and give it to their employees? Is that a better way?
That was a better way earlier, but today, if you ask me, there are no such instances which will happen because most companies have stopped taking on accommodation on their name and giving it to their employees. It used to be very popular earlier.
Right.
So today, most of them are on individual leaves and licenses. So I don't think it will work in the same fashion as earlier. But I think you don't need to worry because the rules are pretty much stringent today. So even if you have a very sort of what I would call a difficult, to put it euphemistically, a difficult licensee, lessee, or a tenant, you will be able to evict him in 2 years' time.
You're confident of our laws?
Yeah.
Okay. Whether I have a 1 bedroom or I have a 5 bedroom, is it just better for me to do it up well and give it out on rent? Or am I going to lose money by maintaining it constantly?
See, that depends upon your thinking because both are right, both are wrong. Most people think, I don't want to get into anything because most tenants do come in with their own sort of soft furnishing as well as a bit of hard furniture, movable. Whereas some people prefer to do it up very well because the rentals go up from 3 to almost 5-6%. It'll jump if you have done it up because you attract a different sort of a tenant. So it's up to your thinking what you want to do. But if you're asking me purely in economic terms,
Yes.
in most of the micro markets, I believe you should give fully furnished or semi-furnished.
Okay.
It'll always fetch you a higher rental.
It's better, it makes more sense to do so.
I think so.
All right. So when I'm playing real estate as an investment, do I need to be holding on to it for a minimum amount of time? Is there a minimum amount of time that you recommend?
See, any real estate investment, uh, you should see through its whole cycle, which I told you is 10 to 15 years. So, ideally, whenever we buy into real estate, you should have a sort of a time frame of 10 to 12 years at least.
Okay.
Without the time frame, don't go in for 5-6 years because you might be lucky or you might not be so lucky.
Okay.
And you might be caught on the wrong side of the cycle.
All right. Thank you. That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Do share your thoughts and feedback in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for regular notifications. Don't forget to tune in next week where we go into part 2 of this series. Thank you.